In this video, I want to go through a worked example of question 4. It's from the 2009 Leaving Cert paper. So this is really accompanied the previous video in which I broke down the question 4 and kind of analysed it and gave people a chance to just see what you should be and shouldn't be doing in it. This time you can kind of see the actual thought processes as I go through it. Alright, so from the beginning we can see this is in the key of E major. It's in 3/4 time. We've got no upbeat or anything like that to worry about. So straight away what I'm going to start looking at is where are my slash chords, my inversions, like I've got B slash D sharp here, I've got F sharp minor slash A, I've got B slash D sharp, and I'm also going to look at where are my sevenths. So at the very end I've got a, sorry, not the very end, I've got a B7 going to a C sharp minor here at the, between bars 11 and 12. Because those are sections of the composition that we need to address in particular ways. When I've got my inversion on the B slash D sharp, for example, I need to make sure that I've got a D sharp note in the bass. On my F sharp minor slash A, I need to make sure I've got an A note in the bass because it's the note that comes after the slash that's always in the bass. On my seventh, I need to make sure the seventh note, the seventh of B, which is an A, so I need to make sure there's an A note in the right hand in the treble clef. So our sevenths are in the right hand, our inversions are notes after the slash are in the left hand. Okay, so those are the things I really need to be aware of. Remember before I also said I need to take the ideas they've got here, so I can see that some of the movement they've got a dotted crotchet quaver followed by a crotchet. So I'm going to try and use that rhythm a lot in the left hand. They've also got twice they've used this minim followed by a crotchet out here. So I'm going to try and use quite a lot of that in the left hand too. So quite often I'm going to use a minim followed by a crotchet in the left hand. I can also see that at the end of a phrase they tend to end with a long note in the right hand, and in the left hand they've got a crotchet followed by a run of quavers. So I'm going to do that a couple of times. When I come to my ends of phrases, I'm going to use a long note in the right hand, followed by a crotchet and a run of quavers in the left. And other than that, it's really just a case of outlining the chords. So I'm going to start with my bass line, because the bass line is quite easy. You just outline the root note of each chord. I know I'm going to have an E for this E chord. I know I'm going to have a B for this B chord down here, a C sharp for this C sharp minor chord. I also know that when I come to slash chords, I'm going to have, for example, a D sharp here. I'm going to have an A here. So it's really quite easy. I know exactly what my notes are going to be in the left hand. All I have to do is make sure I do them in the right rhythms. And the rhythms I'm going to use are these ones: dotted crotchet, quaver followed by a crotchet, and just a long held minim followed by a crotchet. And at the end of phrases, I'm going to use a crotchet followed by a run of quavers. So that makes it all quite easy. So I'll start with a dotted crotchet quaver, and I know it's going to be on an E note because E is our chord. So dotted crotchet followed by a, oops, that was a dotted quaver. Let's just correct that. Dotted crotchet on an E, and I'm going to also have my quaver on an E because you don't need to jump around too much in the left hand. It's usually a lot simpler than what the right hand's going to be. Okay, I know my note here has to be D sharp, so I'm going to do D sharp. Then I'm going to have my minim followed by a crotchet, and it has to be on E and A because E and A are the chords. The left hand really almost writes itself here, E and A. This one I'm going to do a minim followed by a crotchet again. So I've got my F sharp because it's F sharp minor, so it's just a case of deciding which octave I want it in. I'll have it in the higher octave. And I know my crotchet has to be on an A, so I will jump down. So as you can see, the left hand really writes itself. I mean, I've pretty much got a whole phrase of the left hand written already. I just need to do a B note here. So I'll do my B followed by a run of quavers. And you know what? Just to be interesting, because it's getting a little bit boring writing the exact same thing over and over again, I'm just going to change it. Instead of having this run down of quavers that they've got, I'm going to have a run up. And it has to run up to a C sharp note because I'm coming to a C sharp chord. So I'm going to jump down to an F sharp. F sharp is one of the notes of the chord of B, so I can jump to that. I could also jump to a D sharp, which is also one of the notes of a B chord, but I'm going to jump down to an F sharp, and I'm going to make that run up to a C sharp, so like this. Okay, so I've got my crotchet with a run of quavers. It's going up the way rather than down the way like these ones were, and it's leading right up to a C sharp here for this one. Okay, out of my rhythms, I'm going to choose dotted crotchet quaver again, and it has to be on a C sharp note. So I'm going to have that, and you know what? If I wanted, I could go like this. I could have a quaver on a C sharp followed by a crotchet on an A because an A chord is here. But since C sharp and A are one note apart, I'm going to get rid of this C sharp here and I'm going to turn it into a B. So now I've got a little B passing note because B fits in perfectly between that C sharp and A. It's just a nice easy place to put it. Okay, so moving on. Here I'm gonna stick to my minim followed by a crotchet. So my minim has to be on B. So minim on B. Then my crotchet has to be on D sharp. So my crotchet is on D sharp. I'll stick with my minim crotchet. Why not? My minim is going to be on an E note because it's an E chord here, and then followed by a B7. So that has to be a B. B has to be in the left hand, so I'm going to put my B down here. Okay, doing pretty good here. The left hand is really writing itself. We're at C sharp now, so I'm going to have a C sharp crotchet. Remember, I want to have a crotchet followed by a run of quavers at the end of each phrase. That's not a need or anything, it's just something I've decided to do. I see that they've done it in the 4 bars they've given me, so I'm going to use it now as well. So I've got my crotchet, and my run of quavers has to lead to an A note, because A is going to be in bar 13. So I'm going to do what they did. I'm going to run down the way. So the notes of C sharp minor are C sharp, E, and G sharp. So I can start my run on either an E running down the way, or I could start on a G sharp running down the way. But I'm going to start on E, because that really allows me to run right down to that A note that I wanted to. Okay, it allows me to just do a straight run down and land perfectly on an A note here. So let's get my dotted crotchet quaver again. I'm going to do dotted crotchet quaver for A going to F sharp, and I'm also going to do my passing note again, just like I did C sharp, B, A here. When I'm going from A to F sharp minor, I can go A, G sharp. That leads us right down to leads us really nicely down to an F sharp note for there. So I've got my A and F sharp minor outlined here, and next I know I have to have a B and an E. I'm going to do my B on a minim, so B minim followed by an E crotchet. I'll do a high E. Okay, F sharp minor slash A. I could that E leads nicely to an F sharp, but no, I have to put in an A because it's the A comes after the slash. So I'm going to do my E jumping down to an A note. I could also go up to an A note if I wanted, but I'm going to jump down to it. So I'm going to have an A minim followed by a B, because B is our chord, and that has to end then on an E. So I'm going to end on my E here with a dotted minim. Okay, and that is our bass line. So now at this stage we've got our chords and we've got our bass line. All we need to do is think about writing the melody. Melody, I'm going to follow the exact same process. I'm going to look at the rhythms they've got. So they've got a lot of 2 quavers and crotchets. They've got it in bar 1 and bar 3. They've got the dotted crotchet quaver crotchet movement that they had in the left hand as well. The thing I need to think about doing in the right hand now is outlining, again, just outlining notes of the chord. So on the strong beats, so if we're in 3/4 time, the strong beats, this main strong beat is beat 1, we've also got beats 2 and 3. So on those main beats, I want to outline actual notes of the chord. So for example, I've got an E chord here. Notes of the E chord are E, G sharp, and B. So any notes I use on strong beats, I want to be either an E, a G sharp, or a B. So I'm going to start, you know what, I'm going to start with the same rhythm they used, the 2 quavers followed by 2 crotchets, and I'm going to start it on, I'll start on a B note. Okay, I'll do the exact same melody they've got, because that really outlines an E chord well. Okay, because now on my strong beats I've got B and G sharp, which are 2 of the notes of the chord of E. Alright, when I come to beat 3, I've got a B slash D sharp chord. Now the notes of a B chord are B, D sharp, and F sharp. And I don't want to have D sharp in my melody because I've already got it in the left hand. I want to have a B note to really emphasize that it's a B chord. Even though that D sharp is in the bass, it's still a B chord. So I want to have a B note in my melody here. I'll probably do the same at other points. When I've got F sharp minor slash A, for example, I've got to have an A in the bass. So what I'll probably do at that point when I get there is have an F sharp in the melody. Just to really emphasize that it's an F sharp chord, even though it's got an A in the bass. But we'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to change now. I'm going to do my dotted crotchet quaver movement like they've got here. Okay, has to be note to the E chord, so I'm going to go to G sharp, because E chord is made up of E, G sharp, and B. I want to lead to another note of the A chord, so I'm going to go via B up to C sharp. Okay, the reason I did that is because B is a note of E, and C sharp is a note of A. So it really works with the chords here. All the time when you're writing your melody, you want to be looking at those chords over it and just thinking, what are the notes of that chord? You'll have a chord box that you'll fill in at the beginning of the question that will let you know as you go along the notes of each of the individual chords. And if you follow that's the main thing they're going to be giving marks for in the Leaving Cert exam, that you've really that your melody notes, your melody is made up of notes of the chord. When you any notes that fall under strong beats are notes of the chord that they've given you, and any notes in between those are just passing notes or auxiliary notes. Passing notes are, for example, if you're going from an A to a C sharp, you could have a B passing note because it passes over a B as you go from A to C sharp. An auxiliary note is when you do, let's say you're going from an A note to another A note, you could have a lower auxiliary note where you go down to G sharp and back up again in between, or an upper auxiliary note where you go from A to B and then back down to A. So those are the main systems of movement in this. You want to have passing notes like I've got here, passing notes like I've got here. You got an A passing note between B and G sharp, and auxiliary notes, which I'll be using at different points, and you'll probably see them. Okay, so just keeping a reminder of the rhythms they've got. They've got a lot of this two crotchets followed by quavers things, so I'm going to use it again here. On my F sharp chord, I'm going to have an A because that's the note of the chord of F sharp. I'm going to have a G sharp passing note leading down to the F sharp that I said I wanted when I've got my F sharp minor slash A chord here. And I'm going to have two quavers here. I'm going to have F sharp, G sharp, and you know what, I'll do my auxiliary note. So I've got F sharp, G sharp, and then a long held F sharp on this B note. So this is an upper auxiliary note. When I'm going from an F sharp to another F sharp, and I just go up and back down. A lower auxiliary note would be if I went down to E here and then back up to F sharp. You can do either one, they both work quite well. Alright, so I'm on a C sharp minor chord. Notes of C sharp are C sharp, E, and G sharp. So those are the notes I want to use on this chord. So I'm going to start with a G sharp and I'll do quavers. So I'm going to go G sharp. I'm going to try and lead to another note on my next strong beat, beat 2, another note of C sharp. So I'm going to go via B to a C sharp note. Okay, when I get to my A, I'm going to go to E because E is one of the notes of the A chord. And then that sets me up nicely for when I get to my B chord to have one of the notes of the B chord. I could have either D sharp or F sharp, which are both notes of B, and they're both right next to this E that I've already got. So I've got some nice stepwise movement there, which you want a lot of. I'm going to go down the way. I'm going to go down to a D sharp, and I'm going to use a dotted crotchet quaver movement. Alright, so remember, if I'm on my slash chords, then I've got my D sharp in the left hand already. So I want to have that B note in the right hand. So I can put a nice little C sharp passing note in here that leads me nicely down to that B note in the right hand. Alright, we've come to an E chord. So my notes are E, G sharp, and B. I've already just had B, and I've got E in the left hand, so I'm going to go with G sharp. Okay, G sharp, B, and that will lead me nicely to my 7th. Because remember with B7, that's a really important thing. We've already got a B note in the left hand. I want to have my 7th, which is an A. The 7th of the chord B is A. I want to have an A in my right hand. So I'm going to have my A there. And that leads through a nice B passing note up to C sharp, to the note C sharp for my C sharp minor chord afterwards. Okay, so handling that 7th is really important. You got to have your 7th in the right hand while your root note is in the left. So we're going quite nicely now. We've got most of done here. We're outlining the chords. We've got our slash notes in the left hand. We've got our 7th in the right. We've got some passing notes leading between different notes of the chords. You notice the chords fall into strong beats and the passing notes fall between those. We've also got some auxiliary notes here. So let's just keep continuing with that. We're using our rhythms from the opening nicely. We've got our 2 quavers followed by 2 crotchets. We've got our 2 crotchets followed by 2 quavers. We've got a dotted crotchet, quaver, crotchet, and we've also got this thing that we had at the beginning, at the end, at the cadence in the beginning. We've got a long held note in the right hand, followed by a crotchet and a run of quavers in the left. We've done that a couple of times now. So, next thing we want to do is, sorry, I've just realized I've left the wrong length of note here. Let me correct that. Okay. In our right hand, we've come to an A note. We've come to an A chord rather. So I'm going to have 2 quavers followed by 2 crotchets this time. That's my rhythm. And I'm going to go from note C sharp through a passing D up to an E on the strong beat because E is another note of the chord A. The notes of the chord A are A, C sharp, and E. So I've got a C sharp on one strong beat, I've got an E on another, and I've got a little D passing note in between them. And that also leads me nicely up to my F sharp note for this F sharp minor chord here. Okay, I'm going to hold this F sharp note from my B here, because F sharp is also one of the notes of the chord of B. The chord of B is made up of B, D sharp, and F sharp. I'm going to have some dotted crotchet quaver movement. And what I'm going to do is something that we did a lot when we did our melody writing question. I'm going to frame the note E here. So I know that on B3, I'm going to need to have one of the notes of the chord of E. And I've decided I'm going to have an E note. I'm going to have the home note. So I'm just going to jump ahead and actually put that in there. So I've got a quaver here, and I somehow have to get from F sharp to E in that time. I could have another F sharp, but I've already had like 2 F sharps in a row, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down like this. I'm going to jump from F sharp to a D sharp and then back up. So I'm kind of framing that E note. I've got the note above it, I've got the note below it, and then I've got that E note itself. It's a nice little way to target a note. If you know that you're aiming for a particular note at a particular time, it's a nice little way to kind of target it, to set up reaching that note. To play the note above it, follow up with the note below it, and then land on the note at just the right time. So that's what I've done here. Okay, next chord is F sharp minor / A. We've got our A note in the bass, so I want to have my F sharp in the top section. Since I'm coming to the end, I'm going to change the rhythm slightly. We've been using the same rhythms all along, the rhythms that they've given us. Coming to the end, I'm just going to have 3 straight crotchets in the right hand, just because it kind of gives it a sense of finality. It's almost like each note is stopping. It's like a real cadence effect almost. So I'm going to have an F sharp here, because I have to have my F sharp. I forgot my A in the bass. Then I'm going to jump down to a C sharp. The notes of F sharp minor rather, are F sharp, A, and C. I've got my A in the bass. I've had my F sharp here, so I'm just going to put a C sharp here. Then I've got my B note in the bass, so I'm going to have I've got my B note going to my E here, so I want to have my T do in my melody here. I like to have either T do in either my bass part or my melody part. And since my bass part is going from B to E, as the chords have told me to do, I'm going to have my melody going T to do. So D sharp going to an E, T going to do. That means I end on do, I've ended on my E, I've got my T to do, and I've also outlined my chords. Okay, so that is our worked example of the 2009 question 4. I'm just going to play that now so that you can have a listen and see what it sounds like.